Hi, everybody. Brian and Angela here. We are back with part 3 of our Star Wars discussion as we lead up to the Galaxy's Edge openings at both Disneyland and Disney World. Today is episode 3, Attack of the Clones.
No,
No,
Revenge of the
Revenge
Sith.
of the Sith. Ugh,
Brian
already.
has not had enough coffee, and I
Oh, I have.
decided
No, I've had way too much coffee is the problem, but for some, and I'm staring at the title that says Revenge
how
of
is
the
that
Sith, but
possible then?
I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking longingly of hearing about sand and how much Anakin dislikes it. Um, but yeah. So I guess we'll start off with we are both employees of TouringPlans.com. If you are not familiar with Touring Plans, I suggest you visit TouringPlans.com or watch any of our other videos that we have on our YouTube channel, and there are a lot of them. And we are officially going mostly weekly now, I guess, with these discussions leading up to the May 31st opening of Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland. So if you are watching this and going, Revenge of the Sith, I almost said Attack of the Clones again, by the way. If you're watching this going, Revenge of the Sith, I don't really care. Come back next Friday. We'll be talking about Solo, a Star Wars story. So the most recent one.
Yeah, that's the one I'm like least looking forward to watching.
I
We
Yeah.
started it this week
Oh, yeah.
and then turned it off because I was so bored. So now I'm just gonna have to like push through or something
I'm
next week.
I'm looking for. I mean, obviously, we'll talk a lot more about Solo next week, but I'm looking forward to it a little bit just because I haven't seen it in full since the theater. So I'm wondering now, given a little bit of space, if it will hit me a little differently. But
Well, we'll make it work, I mean, can't be as bad as when we just like crushed and did not say good things about Fantastic Beasts. So it should go
that's
better than
true.
that at
Yeah,
least.
yeah, that's
Did not
true.
go well.
Yeah, because we also did this with Harry Potter not too long ago. Good. And before we get into the movie, I have a random thing that I found recently. There is a Star Wars Celebration event in Chicago in April, which is a lot like a Comic-Con type of thing, except for all Star Wars. And they are going to be talking about, I know they're going to be doing panels on both Episode 9, which comes out in November, I think, later this year. And one about Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. So we might get some more information on that. I'm sure we will talk about that on whatever episode it is of ours that comes out after there. The funny thing, they have a lot of autograph signings and things like that for some really, really cool I mean, the list is insane.
Hmm.
Billy D. Williams is going to be there. Ian McDiarmid, who is the Emperor. Jason Isaacs, who I only put because he plays Lucius Malfoy. I believe he does. Or no, he was in. I forget what he was in. Actually, I didn't write that part. Forrest Whitaker, who was in Rogue One. Paul Bettany, who is in Solo. We'll see him next week. Also plays Vision in the Avengers. Riz Ahmed from Rogue One. Tamura Morrison, who is Jango Fett. Peter Mayhew, of course, Chewbacca. Warwick Davis. Ray Park. And the ones I was most surprised by are Ahmed Best and Hayden Christensen are actually both going to be there
Yeah.
for discussions with Star Wars fans, which is possibly a little brave of them. I imagine not all the. I mean, face to face, I assume people will be nice. I hope, but they do get a lot of blame for it. But
Well, if Touring Plans wants to send me to like, watch and see that Galaxy's Edge panel, I mean, I'm not that far. I'm like 6 hours from Chicago. I'd
it's
happily
true.
make that sacrifice and drive there.
I
And then
think
maybe meet, a few of the actors too.
most of the stuff seems to be sold out. Actually, as I was glancing, but. Yeah, the of course a lot of the autograph signings cost money, which again was kind of
Mhm.
funny. Like some of them, it was
Yeah.
like $100 for Billy D. Williams, $110 for Ian McDiarmid, 199 for Hayden Christensen, which Billy D. Williams for half the price of Hayden Christensen doesn't seem exactly right to me. But
Yeah.
the one that cracked me up was only $80 for Ahmed Best. Poor Jar Jar.
Brian, I'll get his autograph and I'll have him make it out to you. And I'll just send it
I
to
would
you.
I would absolutely love that. I think it is. much like many of the actors in this film, I'm not sure it was their fault that this
Yeah.
stuff went wrong for them. So I don't necessarily blame Ahmed Best for anything that happened there. Um,
Let's say hi to a few people. Hello to D, hello to SG, and hello to Raymond. Oh, he's from New York. Okay, Rochester, New York. All
not
right.
all that far. That's a few hours from me is all. So
Yeah.
um,
So, where do you want to start?
well. I keep wanting to say Attack of the Clones. I do not know why that's in my brain. Revenge of the Sith. This came out May 19th, 2005. So we're 3 years after Episode 2 in real time, and it takes place 3 years after Episode 2 in movie time. This is 19 BBY, so 19 years before the events of Star Wars: A New Hope. So how are you feeling when this film came out now? We're on 6 years after Phantom Menace, after the prequel started. Where were you at as a fan?
I gosh, I don't have like a huge memory, but thinking about like all the stuff I had, like I know that I got the book when it first came out, so I was nerdy enough to get the book, and I don't feel like a lot of people read it. So I was really excited, and I know that I don't think I went to opening night because I was still a little too young, but I did
Mm-hmm.
go right afterwards. So I do think that I was pretty excited and was really looking forward to it. And since I binge watched Attack of the Clones so many times,
Yeah.
I feel like it was still a pretty big deal for me. And I think I was pretty emotional watching this, but I didn't watch it as many times as the other films. What about you?
This is another one like Attack of the Clones. I don't remember when I saw. I know I saw it in the theaters, and
Hmm.
I assume it was reasonably soon after it came out. But this was
Yeah.
I was after my after Phantom Menace kind of sunk in to me as a movie I didn't really like all of. I was and then Attack of the Clones I was disappointed in. So I was really just going because it was a Star Wars movie and I wanted to complete the series. And I knew where it was going. The only part we kind of knew in advance as Star Wars fans. Um, and we don't have to say hi to Karen. That's my mother. Hi, Mom. Um, and she is a very close drive for me, actually. So closer than Rochester. But so we kind of knew that Obi-Wan defeated Anakin on a lava planet. I feel like that was something that happened in or was mentioned in one of the novelizations or something like that. But that was kind of quote unquote known ahead of time. So everything else leading up we didn't. So I was curious to see where it went, but I know I didn't do like the opening day or anything like
Hmm.
that. And I don't, and I know I only saw it once in the theater, and I don't think I watched it again for years. I think I've only, even watching it this week, I think I've only seen this movie maybe 4 times total.
Yeah.
If that, it might only be three. I know this is at least the third time I've seen it, because I watched before Force Awakens came out. I went back and rewatched the first 6 movies, so I know I had seen it then, and I'd seen it once in the theaters. But this might only be the third time. So this one was a lot of this was kind of new to me. I knew the big points, but I really forgot a lot of how they got there.
I think it was a movie a lot of people were curious about because they wanted to know how Anakin became Darth Vader and they wanted to know the details. So I think that if they didn't really like the first two films, they kind of watched it out of obligation and curiosity. So I think that's what kind of brought a lot
Yeah,
of people to it. But oh, we have a few more comments. Laverne, hello, always watching. And
watching,
Kayline,
always watching.
always watching from St. Louis and Florida. And then Kayline would like a series of videos on staying at the downtown Disney hotels, pros and cons. Okay, we will make a note of
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
we can do that.
I was watching this movie and I remembered nothing until the end. Like I cannot believe my brain like just erased everything until the end. So I'm like I forgot General Grievous, had no idea he existed. I forgot about Count Dooku dying. Like all this stuff completely erased in my brain. So let's get into it and then we'll talk about it a little more.
It's funny when you said about people like kind of completing the series. Um, of the three, I just looked up the box office numbers. Now this is all domestic, I believe, so it doesn't include all the foreign money, which I'm sure there was a lot of. But Phantom Menace was the one that did the best in the theaters over the long run by quite a bit.
Makes sense.
But Revenge of the Sith had the best opening of all three. So I think some of that is that people were just like, okay, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna see it once,
Hmm.
and be done with this. Where Phantom Menace, I think there were more people seeing it repeatedly. I mention them every time we do this, but this Star Wars Minute podcast that I have been using for a lot of the research on this. They ask everybody like how many times you've seen these movies and things like that, and it's kind of the same for everybody. Saw Phantom Menace like several times, and then it kind
Hmm.
of wheedled down. So that is not surprising to see. But yeah, we should probably start talking about this because this one is long, I guess.
Yeah.
So we start with the battle above Coruscant, and sorry, I'm covering your face a little bit with the text there, but you're very low on the screen today. So
I know. Here, I'll do this.
so
There
three
we
years
go.
after the beginning of the Clone Wars, Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi and Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker lead a mission to rescue the kidnapped Supreme Chancellor Palpatine from the cyborg separatist Commander General Grievous during a space battle over Coruscant. After infiltrating Grievous's flagship, the Jedi battle Count Dooku, whom Anakin executes at Palpatine's urging. Grievous escapes the battle-torn ship and the Jedi crash-landed on Coruscant. There, Anakin reunites with his wife Padme Amidala, with his wife Padme, who reveals that she is pregnant. While initially excited, Anakin begins to have prophetic visions of Padme dying in childbirth. I almost paused there because I'm still not 100% sure that Amidala is actually her last name. Or it seems like there's a lot of confusion over whether that's like a title or
Or like her
something,
queen name or
but
something.
Padme
Yeah.
is definitely her name, so we'll go with that one. Um, so
So,
what do you think about the start of this movie?
uh, so I was a little bored at the start of it. I don't know why. I just didn't find it super interesting other than like the Dooku scene.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's because maybe it just like I wasn't really paying attention at the beginning or I don't know, because I was getting my stuff prepared. I just didn't find it super interesting other than the Dooku scene. That's just me. Um, I thought that the beginning credits, it just made me roll my eyes because if you've
Oh yes,
watched
the
any
crawl.
of the
Yeah,
Star Wars films, you know that Palpatine is, he's the bad guy.
yeah.
And so when you read like he's been captured, you're just like, okay, like that's planned, that's rigged. And
Yeah.
then the beginning, like war, it's like so
Oh yeah.
dramatic.
Here I have the crawl to put up here. Um, yes, it starts with war exclamation point, which is a very strange start to the crawl. And then the one that is very strange to read, especially today, is the line that says there are heroes on both sides,
Yeah,
and then evil is everywhere. Which I I guess the idea there is, well, there are good people and bad people on both sides, which I get abstractly, but when we're talking about something as light and dark as the dark
very black
side
and
and the
white.
Jedi, yes, it
Yeah.
has always been very straight down the middle. No, the Jedi are the good ones, the dark side are the bad ones, and now all of a sudden there are heroes on both sides. Like, okay, evil is everywhere. I kind of get, I mean, Anakin was a Jedi, turned out to be evil, um, but the heroes on both sides is odd. Like, who is the hero on the dark side? I
Right.
don't think we've seen one. So
No.
it's a very odd, it's a very prescient comment to today, which is very strange to read.
A couple things I wanted to point out. If you are watching, please feel free to leave your thoughts on what we're talking
Oh
about
yes.
in the comments. You don't have to just listen to us. Like, if you have something to jump in with, please do. I also noticed immediately between Anakin and Padme is that the acting was much better. I don't know if the script was a little better, but Anakin wasn't as creepy, at least for the first half of the
Yeah.
movie. And then Padme actually seemed like she liked Anakin this time around. She
Yes.
seemed a little more, I don't know, emotional. So I don't know if that's her just like letting her wall down more or being pregnant, but I thought that like
Or could
They,
honestly just be the actors getting used to doing this now.
yeah.
It's the third movie. Speaking of the actors, actually, weird thing about this film, there is no on location shots with actors in this entire movie. They do have location shots that are filmed, but the actors are not there. So if there is an actor on screen, there is a green screen there too, because they are either on a set with a composite green screen behind them, or they are just full on green screens. So it really informs, and I think that's a lot of the problem with the acting in this. There's so many times where now, since these movies have come out, well, I wouldn't say since, I'd say during when these movies were being filmed, they started to get a lot better with CGI acting, where,
Mhm.
giving the actors enough to work with that they can fake it. Where in this, I think, especially with Natalie Portman and and I almost wanted to say Hans Christensen, which I have no idea where that one came from, but with Hayden Christensen, I think they had a lot of trouble trying to figure out what they were even seeing at any given point, and that could be that they were just getting used to that style of acting a little bit
Yeah.
by this point and doing a better job with it. Um,
Well,
but
and when it's a made-up galaxy, how do you explain that to someone and what they're supposed to be imagining before acting?
oh
You
yeah,
know, it's
and
completely made up.
And Jeff points out here that George Lucas was notorious for finishing scripts last minute, and yeah, and that was, he's notorious for not really being an actor's director. He doesn't care a ton about the dialogue and will make kind of last minute calls. Like, I've always heard that if you read the scripts for these movies, there's like better movies in there but like while shooting, they kind of were making changes as they went. And he's also fairly notorious for doing like one or two takes and that's it. So they didn't really get a lot of runs at some of these things. So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, Stephen is does not agree that the acting is better, and we didn't say all the acting was better by any means, and better compared to the last movie is
Yeah.
relative for sure.
Yeah. No. And like you said, when you compare to they only get one or two takes,
Yeah,
like if that's all I got for like singing, if I was
yeah,
making a CD, for example, and they're like, okay, you get one time for one
yeah.
song, it's like I would never want to listen to it.
No,
You know?
no, it's tough. I also
Yeah.
find it weird that with where this movie is. Like the last movie is called Attack of the Clones.
Mhm.
It ends basically with Yoda saying, "Begun the Clone Wars has," and then we jump to the end of the Clone Wars,
Yeah.
which seems to be kind of an interesting part that we just skip over. It's very odd. And again, and we've talked about this before, so I won't go into it. But I feel like if they had started this whole series with where they were in Episode 2, it would
Mhm.
have gone better. We would have seen more of Darth Vader. We would have seen more of the Clone Wars, and we could have just kind of skipped the whole Phantom Menace part
Yeah.
altogether.
And
uh,
that's what you kind of mentioned in our notes is you would have liked to see Anakin actually be Darth Vader for a bit. And I think that
yeah,
would have been a really cool movie to see because you can see even towards the end after he's killed the younglings, after he's killed Newt Gunray, he's standing there crying,
yeah,
like he's still and it's right before, he has the battle with Obi-Wan. So it would have been cool to kind of see him afterwards, maybe see him deal with the emotions of like thinking he killed Padme and kind of going forward with that. That would have been kind of neat. And then to see him like even more evil.
yeah. Well, and because one thing we know from the original trilogy is that, and I don't remember exactly how it comes out, although we'll find out in a few weeks. But that Darth Vader was basically responsible for wiping out the Jedi.
Hmm.
And it would have been nicer, I think, to see him more personally doing it. Like
Yeah.
Order 66, maybe him like hunting down Jedi. Like I think that could have been a very interesting sequence if he was personally going after more of these Jedis as Vader instead of them just getting shot in the back by clone troopers. Although we're not there yet, I guess. So
Yeah. Okay.
should we skip to the next section here?
Yeah. Yeah. We're just like nitpicking at this point. Okay. So I'll start my part. Palpatine appoints Anakin to the Jedi Council as his representative and informant, but the Council declines to grant Anakin the rank of Jedi Master. The Council orders him to spy on Palpatine, diminishing Anakin's faith in the Jedi. Palpatine, Palpatine tempts Anakin with his knowledge of the dark side of the Force, including the power to prevent death. So Brian's first note is Anakin needs a therapist.
Yeah, well, and it is it's one thing, and I think it was one of George Lucas's points in with this trilogy. Although the prequels are strange in that as you watch them and as you hear people talk about them that defend them, they bring up a lot of things that would make for very interesting movies, except that they're not necessarily in these movies. And one of those is that the Jedi in general during this period are arrogant, they're overconfident, and I mean they do say that part, but they a lot of that kind of has to be inferred, and I think this is one of those times where they're kind of almost nasty to Anakin in points, and
Yeah.
he really just kind of needs somebody to talk to, but feels like he can't because the Jedi are all very like, oh no, you can't feel things.
Hmm.
Where I think if they had just said like, okay, this is all natural, it's fine to feel this way, here's how we're going to get through this, like that would have been a much better tactic probably.
No, I think about that too. They're all about like suppress, suppress, but it's like, you have to leave your mom. You don't have a
Yes.
dad. You don't have a dad at all to begin with.
No.
Then your mom dies. Then you fall in love, but you're not allowed to be in love. So then you have to secretly get married. And then throughout all of this, you have anxiety, but you have Yoda telling you that anxiety is bad and means fear and means that you're going to go to the dark side if you have any of this.
Yeah.
So it's just like the whole thing's a little messed up.
Yeah, well, and that's what, like, 2 notes later, I said, oh, I guess Yoda's the therapist because he's talking one-on-one to Yoda then. But Yoda's advice is basically, like, don't miss people who die. Like he basically says, oh, they've gone on to a better place. They've become one with the Force, which, okay.
I get it.
It's a coping mechanism. And
Don't fear death.
in this case, it's kind of real. Like, many of the Jedi do become one with the Force. Um,
Yeah.
but then he says, like, he literally says just like don't miss them, which seems impossible in most
Right.
cases. And basically says like don't miss them, don't love at all, it'll be fine. And it's yeah, it seems tricky.
And here's the whole irony of the thing. Okay, so Obi-Wan loved Qui-Gon. You hear Obi-Wan say to Anakin, I loved
Yeah.
you. So obviously they can't help but to love, like, the teachers and the Padawan learners, like they do. The love just comes,
Yeah. Well,
So it's like you can't help it.
and the Yoda and other Jedi, Obi-Wan. When I mean Obi-Wan's later teachings are probably different, but even in this movie, I mean Yoda says things like search your feelings or stretch out with your feelings, things like that, which seems almost counterintuitive to don't have feelings.
Yeah.
And I mean they could mean literally just stretch out your awareness. Instead, but using the term feelings seems loaded in that case, which is strange. Speaking of feelings, the line cracked me up. A lot of Padme Anakin dialogue cracks me up in these 3 movies, but the one that got me in this section is how long is it going to take to be honest with each other, which Padme says to Anakin, which they are now married and she is pregnant with twins and are still wondering why they're not honest with each other, which seems like it's not a great time to worry about that.
Like, well, if you haven't figured it out by then.
Yeah, like several years ago was the time to worry about that part. But
Yeah, maybe like 3 years ago when you got married on Naboo. Just a thought.
yeah, and there's a lot of Anakin's turn to the dark side in this movie bothers me. And I'll go in a little more detail on that, but a lot of like later after we go through the whole thing, but he jumps back and forth a lot, and I realize he's supposed to be kind of
Conflicted.
and he's being manipulated, as Holly just pointed out, that both sides are trying to manipulate him. But like he's talking to Palpatine, who I love the cartoonish Palpatine in this movie. And Ian McDermott is amazing at this, and I know it gets super goofy towards the end, but it's still he's chewing all of the scenery that isn't really there. But Anakin's talking to Palpatine. Palpatine says, "Oh, I want to put you on the council," and he says, "Oh, the Jedi will never allow this." And the Jedi basically say, "We're not going to allow this," and then he freaks out and is like, "How can you not allow this?" And I'm like, "Well, but you just said that they wouldn't. You knew
You
this was
knew
coming."
this. And he gets all like angsty and hormonal again.
Yeah,
It's like,
and
Anakin, you're
now
like 21.
Now, what comes after this, I like, where the Jedi take the turn and try to manipulate him, which pushes him farther away. That whole part I understand completely, but he just kind of jumps back and forth a lot in this movie, where like he seems to be on one side and then on the other, which again I think is the point. It just doesn't come across quite right.
Hmm. Now, you kind of talked about the Jedi. Is it Plagueis? Is that how they pronounce
I
it?
I, I think in the movie they say Plagueis. I always kind of pronounced it Plagius, but that was
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd ever heard it pronounced before. So
They anyway, so Palpatine's talking to Anakin about this Jedi
hmm
Plagueis and how he manipulated the midi-chlorians to create life. And so
how he manipulated the midichlorians to create life is the way he says it, which is again a very loaded look.
I feel like Brian could have been like
Excuse
his
me.
stand-in in case he got hurt. So my question, because it's been said that then Anakin might have been created by Plagueis. So I have like then all of these questions.
hmm
So did Plagueis just use like did he pick Shmi as a host to like host Anakin in her womb, or did the midichlorians just go and pick her at random? Like I need more information about this now. You can't just like throw that in there and then I need more.
Well, there is a an extended universe novel all about Darth Plagueis, um, and it is no longer canon. It was, I believe, um, the final extended universe novel right before Disney decided that everything that came before is not canon anymore. Um, for those of you who aren't aware, when after Disney bought all the rights to Star Wars, um, at a certain point they said, okay, and I don't remember the date exactly. They said, okay, everything that came before this point that is not a film, basically, is no longer considered canon. They call them
Mhm.
legends instead. From that point on, most of the extra stuff, comic books and books and things, are canon. Although I think there's a couple in there that aren't. Basically, Disney has set up a department, or a person at least, that is in charge of deciding what is canon, what is not. All the films are canon. The Clone Wars TV series, the Rebels TV series, all considered canon, but the books are not necessarily. So yes, it is called Star Wars Darth Plagueis. And it's actually titled Legends at the top now, which is kind of funny, by James Luceno, I believe. And you can buy it for like $7 on Amazon, apparently. But it came out in 2012, so this is quite a bit after this
Yeah.
film did. The story in there is I've never read it before, so I'm going off of what I've heard. If anybody has happened to read it or knows more about it, feel free to correct me or add more in the comments. In this story, Darth Plagueis is manipulating midichlorians and something called maxichlorians, I believe, that he finds a creature that has, which but they are trying to create life, and it pretty much gets out of their control. And the assumption is that they did create life in Shmi Skywalker, but they didn't know that they did that.
Huh.
They were kind of manipulating the midichlorians, and the Force created this person, but they kind of lost control of it, and he got created inside a random person on Tatooine, basically. And Sidious didn't find out until later on that that is what happened. So I don't think there's any like proof that Darth Plagueis created Anakin, but it is hinted, and Plagueis himself obviously is still canon because he's mentioned in this film. So he
Right.
existed, and I believe he supposedly existed up until like a couple like around this time in the and again it's also hinted at in the book. I think it's spelled out that Darth Sidious is his apprentice who kills him. But in the movie, it's just kind of hinted at also that, oh, he's his apprentice, because he says, oh, he taught him everything he knows, and then he implies that he knows how to stop death. And doesn't. But yeah, so that's the Cliff's Notes version of Darth Plagueis. Um, One thing it kind of hit me as I was watching this, and they were talking about like they mentioned something about the Jedi mind trick, and it really hit me that that's kind of a evil power, like to manipulate somebody's mind
Just in general.
seems real dark for
Yeah.
considering that the Jedi do it all the time.
Well, and they say like Anakin said during that conversation, like, well, they use their powers for good, but I mean, it's still manipulation.
Yeah, yeah, to mess with somebody's brain seems strange.
Yeah. Let's do some comments before we move on. Let's see. Dee said I too. Kayline said that missed the days of wandering characters during Star Wars weekend events, and Dee agrees. Um, let's see. Dee said they really missed out on the opportunity to explore Anakin turning into Darth Vader. And then, yeah, I think we're all catched up. Oh, and then Lori likes my hair. Thank you. So, yeah, okay, let's move on to when we meet the Wookiees.
All right. Let me find my graphic here. There we go. Yoda travels to the Wookiee homeworld of Kashyyyk, lots of Y's in there, to defend it from invasion, and Obi-Wan travels to Utapau, where he battles and kills General Grievous. Palpatine reveals to Anakin that he is the Sith Lord Darth Sidious, and that he knows how to save Padme. Narrator? He doesn't.
No, it doesn't. Okay, so at this point, like Anakin, the whole movie is one self-fulfilling prophecy, in my opinion. You know, he had a bad dream about Padme, like he had these night terrors, and then he spends the entire movie trying to not make it come true, but in the process, just makes it come true.
Yeah, it's rough, and this is part of my problem with Anakin's motivation to become evil, I guess, or turn to the dark side at least, is that he seems to have several motivations. I mean, you go back to Phantom Menace when he's basically taken away from his mother, and you think, oh, him missing his mother is going to be what does it. And then Attack of the Clones, he has a prophetic dream about her dying, and
Mm-hmm.
goes to try to save her, and he can't, and he wants to stop death, and he murders all the sand people, and you think, oh, this is it. This is the start of him turning to the dark side. He wants to conquer death, and he doesn't care who he kills anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
then, no, then he's kind of okay after that for a while, and then he has this secret love with Padme, and now she's pregnant, and he wants to protect her, and you think, oh, protecting this secret and his children, this is what's going to eventually lead him, and it doesn't really. And then he has another prophetic dream, and okay, that's the one, and it seems like they reset there a few too many times, like either kind of have him good up until he's not, or start hinting at it. Like in the beginning of this movie, he seems very almost happy to be Obi-Wan's master. They're very complimentary. I know you mentioned it at some point in here in the notes that that Obi-Wan and his relationship seems very friendly for most of this
Yeah.
time.
Well, and Obi-Wan is not as hard on him
Mm-hmm.
anymore like he used to be, and he speaks very highly of Anakin to everyone else. It's a very positive relationship, and I don't know, Anakin's kind of come into his own, even though he says he feels super lost, but he wasn't feeling lost until he had that dream, really.
Yeah. Um, what do you think about the Obi-Wan General Grievous battle fight scene kind of thing?
I really don't have too much to say about it. I thought it was super unfair when Grievous got into his little rolly cart. I'm just like,
Yes.
oh, come on. Like, now you have the upper hand. Like, why can't you just like fight like just two people, like four sabers to one? Like,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't that enough? But otherwise, I mean, it was fine. I really don't have too much of an opinion on it.
Yeah, it's one of those that in my memory I always think like, oh, that's a pretty cool fight scene where he's fighting with the four sabers, but it doesn't actually last that long, which that I don't have a problem with. I think in
Yeah.
general a lot of the action sequences in all movies, not just this one, last a little too long, but it also is shot strangely. There's a lot of close-ups in it, so you can't
Hmm.
really see everything that's happening, which I don't love. And on the screen right now, I'm showing General Grievous and his four sabers. A little background on it, and speaking of background, well, the account name is Joshua and Natalie. I'm not sure who it was, but they say during the Clone Wars and Rebels animated series, they do talk more about Vader training the
Inquisitorius?
Inquisitorius, okay, to hunt down and kill the Jedi. So I guess if you want to see more of that, watch those. I've always heard good things, and I've seen parts of the Clone Wars now. I haven't gone into Rebels at all, but I know General Grievous is in the Clone Wars animated series quite a bit, and his background, he's a Kalish male, which is his species. He sustained a terrible injury and volunteered for a procedure that made him mostly machine. He has quicker reflexes and enhanced strength, although you don't really see that as much. He also has a hacking cough for reasons that supposedly George Lucas was sick. And I don't know if this is legend or canon, but George Lucas apparently was sick one day and thought it would be amusing if a character was like asthmatic or something and had a hacking cough, and that was kind of how that happened. Again, the whims of George, yeah.
But makes no sense.
But as an asthmatic, I don't cough that much normally, although I've been coughing through this whole thing, so I guess maybe I shouldn't talk.
I guess I do have one opinion. Obi-Wan jumping onto his creature, I think it's called like a boga or baga.
Yeah, boga is its name. I forget what the actual creature is called.
Yeah, it's the name of. They never give a name of the actual creature. They don't identify it. They just give the name they named it.
There is apparently a deleted scene where he like mind tricks a guy into like giving him boga, and but yeah.
Well, he just kind of like comes out of nowhere, the creature. Yeah. Anyway, so the way that Obi-Wan jumps on the creature, where he jumps, lands on his feet on the creature, and then like sits on it. It's a perfect example of how I think Padme should have landed on the creature during the battle scene in Attack of the Clones, and I don't even know why I'm bringing it up, but it just really bothers me how she just landed and like could still have babies afterwards. Brian and I talked about this in the last YouTube live that we did. Yeah. I don't know. It bothered both of us. Yeah. But Obi-Wan did it the right way.
Yeah, well, because she falls like 15 feet just straight onto the back of this like bony creature.
And we're terrible. Like, ow. But anyway.
So should we move on to Darth Vader and Order 66 here?
Yeah, there's no good segue into this, so I'm just gonna just start. Anakin reports Palpatine's treachery to Mace Windu. Okay, whenever I say Mace Windu, I always think of Jimmy Fallon's parody song. Have you seen that?
No, I don't think I've heard that.
It's the Slim Shady parody, but it's Mace Windu. Anyway, you guys can watch it. Anakin reports Palpatine's treachery to Mace Windu, who confronts and subdues the Sith Lord, disfiguring his face. However, fearing that he will lose Padme, Anakin severs Windu's hand, allowing Palpatine to cast him out the window to his death. Anakin pledges himself to Sidious, who dubs him Darth Vader. As a Supreme Chancellor, Palpatine issues an order that causes the clone troopers to kill all Jedi. Vader kills the remaining Jedi in the temple, including the younglings. So sad. Yeah. Okay, I can't read when I've had coffee because like my voice shakes. But this is a sad part. I didn't like this.
Well, I don't think you're supposed to like it, but it's funny because even though these other Jedi we really know almost nothing about. I don't even know if we have names for most of them. I mean, they have names.
But you don't ever hear them.
Conehead is Kiadi-Mundi, I know that. And but yeah, they don't do a lot. Some of them don't even have lines in the movies. But it's still pretty heartbreaking to watch them like just get mowed down during the Order 66 part, which is strange. And they all die real easy though. Like
well, Kiadi-Mundi, to see him like you see him try to defend himself. Yeah. Like he's leading the battle, and then you see him turn around and like try to defend himself. Where like the girl who like is in Avatar Land in Pandora, yes. She just like goes down with one shot, and then they just like go in.
Yeah,
that was just nothing.
Yeah, it's weird that they just don't see, they're supposed to have at least some sort of precognitive ability or be able to sense things happening. Yet a lot of them are just like, what's going on? Ow, my back.
Yeah, the only one who did was Yoda.
Yeah, which, again, makes sense. Yoda's the master Jedi, but, I guess they're all masters, but.
He's Yoda.
But he's Yoda. Yeah. And, I was trying to look for that woman's name because I can't remember it. And,
The other
Oh well,
thing is
never mind. But
when Mace Windu comes in with three other Jedi, how easily Palpatine killed those Jedi. They didn't even
oh yeah,
try. It was just like one swipe for each of them, and then that was it. Like they're skilled, trained Jedi.
yeah. And I mean, it just and they had lots of time because he was doing his spinny thing across the room at them. You think they would have been a little bit ready?
I
Um,
know. There's four of them.
I also find it weird that in certain sections they almost forget that they can do like the force push or like move stuff, which seems like it would be helpful a lot. But it seems like once they start fighting with the lightsabers, they kind of forget they can do other force things. And it gets better. The fights towards the end of the movie, I think, are actually much better in that. But this is one where I'm like, well, there's 3 or 4 of them, I think, in that room. Couldn't they have just kind of restrained him using the Force, or at least attempted to, and then they could show his
Yeah.
power as he like breaks free of them or something? Like, yeah, it's just kind of like stab, stab, stab. Okay, it's just me and you now. Like,
Like in
oh,
a real situation, like they totally would have been able to restrain him, but for the sake of the plot line keeping it going,
well,
like he
yeah,
had to kill him.
yeah, and well,
It's
I
just
understand
annoying.
they have he has to be able to beat them, but it just seems like they could have made it, I don't know, something. There's one weird thing during the scene. This was originally supposed to have Anakin in the room, and for a reason that I either don't remember or they never said, um, they Sidious was using Anakin's lightsaber, I guess, at least one point in the fight. And in the film, you can see in certain cuts where he's holding, because Anakin's lightsaber has a big black section at the bottom,
Hmm.
where Palpatine's is all silver and has a little like kind of gold thing on the top. And you can see that the black sticking out of the bottom where he's using Anakin's lightsaber. It's, of course, it's red because they did that all in post.
Yeah.
But yeah, where they still use some of the shots of him holding Anakin's lightsaber, and I don't know exactly how that would have worked,
No.
but they decided not to do it anyway. But I thought that was one of those funny things that you would only notice if you were looking for it.
Unless he like just like threw it to him or something. Um, with that being said, I hate the way Palpatine holds the lightsaber. He holds it like this,
Oh yeah,
and you don't see any other Jedi do that. And it drives me bananas. He looks so inexperienced, like it's the first time he's training using one and like battling for the first time. And it's like, no, if you're that good, you would not go like this. And
yeah.
like, oh, it just like drives me crazy.
Mm,
I don't know
mm.
why.
Um,
I know, that's what it looks like.
I, yeah, seeing him and Yoda both with lightsabers still sits wrong with me. I just I feel like they're above that almost. That they don't need to fight with lightsabers, and it's still I don't know. There's something to me that doesn't look right in my eyes, and that might be some of it too. That it does look weird when they hold it. So let's get to the climactic moment, probably in the trilogy, where Anakin makes his decision. Um, so this is Sidious basically on the ground next to the blown out window, and
Hmm.
he's doing the Force lightning to Mace Windu, who is I guess redirecting it back at him using his lightsaber, and it's like melting Darth Sidious, I guess. Which that part I don't like that decision. I kind of always assumed that just using the dark side of the Force for 30, 40 years, whatever it is, by the time we meet him in Return of the Jedi, that is what made him look all weird and gross. So to find out that it was literally just like some lightning that did it is weird.
Yeah.
Anakin, of course, then, as Mace Windu is about to kill him, Anakin comes in, cuts his hand off, and he gets pushed out the window. So
Hmm.
Jeff here has an interesting question that I'm going to pose to you first, Angela. Did Mace actually beat Palpatine, or did Palpatine feign losing in order to manipulate Anakin into saving him?
Okay, that's a hard question
That's
because
why I asked it of you first.
I mean, facially, like you can see like he was getting disfigured, so he probably couldn't have done it for long because I mean the lightsaber was taking in all the electricity and bouncing back to him and blah blah blah. So was he losing? I think eventually he would have lost. So I think what he was saying to Anakin was manipulative. Oh, no, I don't think he was losing.
I tend to lean that way as well. That he was losing on purpose.
Yeah.
But I also because. But I also don't think he would have ultimately lost. I don't know. Like if Anakin didn't jump in there and cut Mace's hand off, would the blade have gotten to here on him, and Palpatine would have just gone ha poof, and like
Yeah.
force pushed him out the window
That's what I
instead.
think.
I tend to lean that way as well. I mean, it's another one of those things that will never be clear. Although this is one that I'm fine with not being clear. I like when there are questions like this to be asked. One weird thing that I heard the Star Wars Minute guys ask was, is the lightning what is disfiguring him, or is him just finally becoming, coming out as a Sith Lord and therefore accessing all of his Sith power? Is that what
Right.
actually is disfiguring him? Is this kind of his natural Sith state that we see?
Because my question is, if he had the wherewithal to, use his electricity, but still have this manipulative conversation with Anakin and be
Mm-hmm.
pretty focused on that, like, how much was he really losing if he could do both?
Well, especially because he's kind of laying there going, "No, I can't hold on much longer. You
I can do
seeing
anything.
this?"
Yeah, I'm
Like,
losing. I'm looking old.
you know, it's uh, it's like when playing tug of war with a dog and going and like pulling and then letting go for a little and then pulling and letting go. Like I
Yeah.
almost feel like that's what he's doing, where he's kind of fighting back and then he's letting Mace go a little farther and trying to hope that Anakin jumps in there. But
He
yeah,
doesn't need any medical attention either. He's fine right after it.
oh, literally right after he's just like, okay,
Yeah.
got to put my hood up. Now I'm gonna go address the Senate. it's
So I
it's
think the Star Wars Minute theory is really plausible.
it's interesting that because he also screams right after that, unlimited power, which is a hilarious line.
His his acting is just like I just am cringing pretty much the whole time.
It's
And there are other
so
parts
over
of
the
the movie
top. It's
too. It is.
this is the I like it at least because he purposely is going over the top. Like I think if Anakin and Padme had read all their stupid lines in this kind of like way over the top scenery chewing manner, I think it still would have been bad, but it would have at least been like interesting and funny, which is kind of how I feel about Ian McDermott's Palpatine here, is that
Oh,
it's generally pretty bad, but it is so amusing that I can watch it all day.
oh,
Um,
he goes there and it's just like
yeah,
at times he seems a little too happy towards Anakin and it's just like really like just makes me like kind of roll my eyes and look around, but like it just makes you laugh, especially like when he goes like no, no, and then
yeah,
I just start
I know.
laughing.
Okay, so another thing I was wondering, and I think I know the answer to this, but why are the Wookiees in this movie? Why do they go to Kashyyyk at all?
I think the whole point is to like introduce Chewbacca. That's it.
Yeah, I think would have been my answer as well,
Literally the only
because
reason.
nothing happens. They don't explain why the droid army is attacking there. They just, or maybe they do, and it's just like in passing when they first mention it, but it doesn't seem to be for a good reason. Yoda just comes, helps them out, and then leaves again. It's
Well, it
weird.
isn't Chewie around because like everyone in his planet died from the battle or like was wiped out?
Yeah, I mean that happens, but I don't, again, I don't think we see, like, we
Like you
don't
don't
leave
see that
Kashyyyk
part.
in the film thinking, oh, Chewie's the last one alive. It's
Right. So they
uh,
kind of set it up, but you don't know that's going to
yeah,
happen if you don't know that backstory. The other thing is like Bail Organa showing up. Like he
yeah,
has to be there
because
to
he
take
has to.
Leia,
Yeah,
but he just shows up as this Jedi fangirl who
yes.
needs to take Leia, but he just randomly is in the movie. And then I made a little joke which I was really proud of. He kept looking for Jedi in Alderaan places. But you guys get it? We're
All right, and
funny.
that's it. Bye, everybody. um,
Ending here.
all right,
Okay,
we
go
have two
ahead.
more sections. We better get through these. Although I don't have nearly as many notes for these, so
No.
so let's jump through. Oh, I forgot my little plot thing. Nope, that's the wrong one. I keep jumping to the wrong ones here. Vader travels to the volcanic planet of Mustafar, boom, 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 to slaughter the separatist leaders. Palpatine declares himself emperor before the Galactic Senate, transforming the Republic into the Galactic Empire, the first Galactic Empire, I might add. Having survived the chaos, Obi-Wan and Yoda return to Coruscant and learn of Vader's betrayal. Padme goes to Mustafar and implores Vader to return to the light side. Vader sees Obi-Wan, who stowed away on Padme's ship, and angrily chokes her, thinking they conspired against him. Obi-Wan engages Vader in a lightsaber duel, severs his legs and arm, leaving him at the bank of a lava flow severely burned. On Coruscant, Yoda battles Palpatine until their duel reaches a stalemate. He then flees with Bail Organa, while Palpatine, sensing that his apprentice is in danger, travels to Mustafar. Whew. So a lot happens here, but it also kind of feels like a lot of it is just kind of battle scenes, which these are kind of the types of battles I meant when I said that they go on too long. Like, there was a long point where I just kind of zoned out while this was happening.
I mean, I thought it got a little long, but I did think that the adding the lava made it more intense, because if you're watching it for the first time, you can guess what's going to happen to Anakin, and you know it's really, really going to suck because it involves lava. So that makes it more intense, especially when they're like on the really tall thing and it's floating in the lava. So I mean, that kind of adds to it, but I do agree that it went on a little too long.
And well, that's the thing. I like parts of the parts where they're where Anakin and Obi, or I guess Vader and Obi, are fighting in like the kind of separatist council room, and you know they both kind of lose their lightsabers, and they both force call them, and they try to force push each other at the same time.
Yeah,
stuff like that I think is really interesting. And the same with the Emperor and Yoda. I love when the Emperor starts just chucking the Senate things at him, and they're flying everywhere. And but yeah, both fights go through multiple stages, and that we probably don't need. But yeah, I mean, there's some great lines in this. Of course, I have the high ground is famous because they kind of say it as if that was set up earlier in the movie, that the one with the high ground always wins, yet it wasn't at all. So it's just like, okay, you have the high ground, who cares? Like, you're wizards.
well, I think that they're giving you the battle scenes because, I mean, people like the lightsaber scenes, and I do think that the one with Yoda and Palpatine was pretty good because they used a lot of their, well, okay, two things. Palpatine and Yoda used a lot of their skills. You know, they used the lightsaber, they used their electricity, and you get to see Yoda like kind of channel it all and then make eye contact and be like, I'm not going to lose. So I thought that was kind of neat. And then with Anakin and Obi-Wan, you see the similarities in their game, which shows, you know, how much Obi-Wan has taught Anakin, how close they are, you know, as far as their tactics and, you know, their force, how close and skill they are. So I don't know. I thought that was just kind of neat.
Yeah, that's why I said there were definitely I like these fight sequences. I think they just could have cut them, you know, pretty heavily. But the high ground, it still cracks me up. Oh, before all this happens, I loved Yoda's line when they were in the Jedi Temple trying to figure out what happened. Where he says, if into the security recordings you go, only pain you will find, which is just a weird, like, mentioning security recordings from Yoda is a funny way of looking at things, I guess.
No,
I don't know.
There's a couple lines like that aren't very Star Wars-ish. Like Anakin says, like, our baby is a blessing, and I feel like that's not very like Star Wars realm-ish.
Yeah.
But there's a few lines like that.
Yeah, well, and I mean the whole thing, you know, I guess that was kind of Anakin's last segment, you know, section of humanity he had left in him, was when he was talking to Padme, and then he choked it away, supposedly. You know, and then of course goes on to think that she's dead. She is dead. He goes on to think that he killed her.
You killed her.
You know, which is what pushes him away, I guess. But it is weird that, like, as soon as he becomes Vader, and then he's like, okay, how can we save Padme? And Palpatine's like, we'll work on it. Like, shouldn't he be like, wait, what now? Like,
yeah, like, you promised me.
Yeah. I mean,
That's what we do.
I feel like then he would be going, well, wait a second, were you lying to me this whole time?
You keep up your end of the deal.
Yeah, and then the same thing after the fact when he's like, oh, you killed her, and he's like, well, but you were supposed to help me save her. Where was that part of the, you know, like, I feel like to then work for him for the next 20 years after that seems a little weird.
Well, he probably thinks like, well, I have nothing left. I don't have Obi-Wan. I don't have this.
Yeah, and I think that's the idea. You know, you can't go back. If he goes back to Obi-Wan or Yoda, they'll probably kill him.
Yeah.
You know, so I kind of get that. It just seems weird that literally immediately after, it's not like oh, he does all these other things and then finds out that oh, he was lied to. He's immediately told basically that he's lied to. Like there is, and I don't have the exact quote, but there is a line where it's like where Palpatine says, "Okay, yeah, let's work on that," and it's like. What? Like, this was the whole thing. This is why I did this. I just killed Mace Windu, and now you're going to be like, I don't know.
I know, and even when he pledges himself, you can still tell that he's a little conflicted about what he's doing. But
Well,
okay, anyway.
I mean, I think the idea is he's conflicted up until he chokes Padme. Like, I think that's the point when he is completely 100% Darth Vader. Like after that, like there's no coming back from that one. You know, I think he technically, as far as the movie explains. I think Padme could have gotten, you know, if Obi-Wan wasn't there, say, there's a chance that maybe Padme could have gotten him at least partially back, you know, or maybe gone into exile with him or something, and he would have
talked a little
not
more
taken a
sense
side.
into him.
Yeah, you know, because it's like, okay, you only killed a whole bunch of Sand people, a bunch of the Separatist leaders, and a bunch
Maybe
of
some
Jedi children.
younglings,
You know, like it's not that big a deal. It's cool.
We can work on this.
Yeah, which is funny, and I don't, you know, he was, you know, the scene where he's like the tears are running down his face, like after he kills all the Separatist leaders, is a weird. I understand that he's not just crying for them, that it's for like everything that's happened, but it is funny that the people that are kind of the bad guys for all three movies are the ones he's like crying over. Almost.
Yeah, like that's where the remorse comes in.
Like I feel like that should have come after the kids part more, but maybe he just doesn't like kids. I don't know.
I don't like that part.
All right, okay. So last section here.
Last section. Obi-Wan regroups with Yoda while Padme gives birth to a boy and girl before dying. On Mustafar, Palpatine finds Vader still alive and brings him to Coruscant, where his mutilated body is treated and covered in a black armored suit. Obi-Wan and Yoda conceal the twins from the Sith. Yoda exiles himself to the planet Dagobah, and Vader and the Empire oversee the construction of the Death Star. Bail Organa adopts Leia and takes her to Alderaan, while Obi-Wan delivers Luke to his step-family, Owen and Beru Lars, on Tatooine.
Yeah, so that's what happens. Padme dying is still an insane choice. Like, not that she dies, obviously she kind of has to. But
she didn't have to die, but she had to for the plot.
Well, that's what I mean. Like for what we already know about Luke and Leia, like she kind of had to. But that. It's literally just like, oh, she seems to have lost the will to live, which right after having, or I guess right before having twins, seems like a weird choice. Like it seems like she has some very clear things to live for at the moment.
Right.
Like why they didn't just have her die from her injuries and they basically C-section the babies out of her. Like I feel like
that would make a lot more sense.
I mean, I know. Go ahead.
Like I don't think they could have Anakin be the reason to kill her. But, I mean, yeah, like...
But he thinks he did anyway, so I don't know that there's a difference.
But I guess it comes full circle. Like, she's been saying that she's been dying a little inside since Anakin came back into her life.
She did say that.
And now this, like, kind of sealed the deal.
Yeah, and I mean, I know there's a line in, I think, Return of the Jedi where Leia says that she kind of has vague memories of her mother. So I don't know if that's why they had to wait until, like, the babies were born, although... Again, like, I mean, now Leia has force power, so it could be that why she kind of remembers it, but obviously you don't really remember your own birth anyway, so I don't know that should have changed anything. But I just always find it where I'm like, she just had two babies. Like, I know...
You have a good reason to stay alive.
Seems like it. I don't, when instead of your husband, who turned out to be kind of a mass murderer, is gone. I don't know. But yeah, and this is where, you know, we finally see him turn into Vader, and he does the infamous no.
That was so bad.
It's very bad, yeah.
It's so bad.
It's real bad. One thing I love about this, the very last words spoken in the prequels, because the last couple scenes have no dialogue in them, so the last thing that happens in the prequels is Bail Organa tells Captain Antilles to wipe the protocol droid's memory, and the last words in this film are, "Oh no." which
I see
sums
preview.
a lot of it up, doesn't it?
Yeah. I don't remember Padme's funeral at all. I thought maybe they added it in because
Hmm.
that's how like I just didn't remember it, and because we were watching all of this stuff, at the end of it where Leia goes to Bail Organa and Luke goes to
Yeah.
the Lars, but I did not remember her funeral. And then I caught the little thing that Anakin made her when he was 9. She was
Yeah,
holding that, which
the
I thought was
Japor
cool.
snippet. Yeah. Um, yeah, I didn't remember this whole ending actually, and I mean I'm watching like
Neither did
my
I.
like original release DVD, so it's not because they did change some stuff for the Blu-rays I know,
That's what I wondered. Yeah.
but this was on the old DVD too, so I guess this was there. But yeah, I remembered. I didn't remember that they wiped 3PO's memory. Other than that, I kind of remember hearing about or like it's a little like it didn't surprise me, and I
Yeah.
guess they had to.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't explain why like Obi-Wan or the Larses don't remember him. But I guess whatever. Um, but uh, but I didn't remember that they actually showed the babies going to Alderaan and Tatooine
Yep.
or anything. I thought it kind of ended with her death, and that was it. I didn't. So
Yeah.
maybe I just turned it off out of disgust after that. I don't know.
I know. I didn't
Um,
remember any of that either.
Very strange. So before we jump here because we've been an hour now. Overall, now rewatching them many years later, what are your prequel opinions?
Phantom Menace is last. Um, I mean, I guess this is second, just because I don't know. It's just kind of a bummer movie. And I more think of things more like emotionally than logically.
Yeah,
So it's just like it's a bummer movie. There's sad parts. I mean, I didn't cry or anything because like at the end of the day it's Star Wars. But so I'd still say Attack of the Clones is top for me because I do like the battle scenes a little more.
yeah.
And they're not as long, kind of like we pointed out. So I think that's still the top as far as the prequels go for me.
And how do you feel about them? Just in like, are they still movies you want to go back and watch periodically? Are you kind of over them at this point?
Um, I mean, I would definitely watch them with my kids or if I was
Hmm.
doing like a rewatch, but I probably wouldn't be like, it's a Saturday night. I'm gonna pop some corn and watch Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, yeah, and I think because like I mean, like I said, I was older when these came out. By this point, I was 26
Hmm.
when this movie came out. So I was never as into them as the people who were younger at the time. So they haven't really changed in my eyes. But they're still Star Wars, and there are parts of all three movies that I really like. I like basically the ending of all three of them actually.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, you're right. They're not. I would kind of have to watch them as part of. Okay, I'm watching all the movies,
Yeah.
or yeah, with the kids. I'm curious to show the kids Phantom Menace because I wonder if they will like that. I've tried to show them the original trilogy and they're not super into it.
Yeah,
Um,
I can see that.
so I'm wondering if they would be a little more into the prequels. But and if I was like in a hotel and I flipping through channels and Phantom Menace was on, I'm probably stopping and watching it for at least a
Hmm.
while. But the
Yeah.
same thing, I'm not going to go out of my way to say, okay, let's okay, honey, it's movie night. Let's watch Revenge of the Sith. Um,
Yeah, I
so
was I
yeah.
was thinking about like when to introduce my kids to Star Wars and if I would start with Phantom Menace, but
Hmm.
I feel like when you are introducing someone to Star Wars, you almost have to start with the original
Yeah,
trilogy
you
because of all
do.
the surprises that come with it, you know?
And yeah, and I don't know. I think we're watching them chronologically here, partially because we've never really watched them that way,
Mhm.
and because it'll be much more fun to talk about, episodes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in a row
Yeah.
than this section has been. So, uh, but if I was telling someone, okay, here, watch, I would absolutely do them in release order instead.
Yeah.
Um, or there's the machete order that somebody came up with, which actually omits Phantom Menace completely, which is strange. But and then I've heard one, and I don't know if this is machete order, where you watch the original trilogy up until like the very end of Jedi, where he takes the helmet off and reveals that it's like Anakin. Then you like stop it and go back and watch the prequels, and then restart from there and go like almost do it
That's
as a
no,
flashback,
that's
which
too much
is
work.
strange. Yeah, but as far as I don't know that I can even rank these. Eventually, when we get through all of them, we'll have to do a full ranking. But um, for the prequels, like I said, I like parts of all of them. I dislike parts of all of them. I would,
Yeah.
if pushed, I would probably put it in 3, 1, 2, Sith, Phantom, Attack of the Clones, as far as order that I would like to rewatch them in, but that could change minute to minute. Honestly,
Yeah, it's true. It like depends on like the kind of mood you're in. I did overall, I guess I will say like I enjoyed this more than I thought I would because I
yeah.
didn't remember it.
Hmm.
So I was more pleasantly surprised, I would say, than I
I would say
remembered.
all three of them. Watching them, the parts that bothered me didn't bother me enough to dislike the parts that I liked. So
Yeah.
I think it was good going back to them from a more clinical perspective after several years of watching them. So, and
Yeah.
like I said before, I hold less anger in my heart for these movies now that there are additional Star Wars movies. And I know a lot of people, Star
Yeah.
Wars fans, have mixed feelings about George Lucas not being involved anymore, and I understand that completely.
Hmm.
Um, but having Revenge of the Sith being the last Star Wars movie potentially did not sit very well with me. So
No.
now that there are more, and not all the Disney ones are great either. We'll talk about that next week.
Yeah.
But just the fact that some of them are very good and they're still coming makes me kind of look back at the prequels with more of a nostalgic eye and okay, this isn't perfect by any means, but this was
Hmm.
at least George Lucas's vision, all and only his, and this is what he wanted to say. So
Yeah.
let me hear it. So
That's something you can respect. And none of the films was something I felt like I had to get through, which I think maybe
yeah.
it's just because like we're Star Wars lovers. So
Oh yeah.
that's a plus. And we get to do this for a job, which is awesome. So
So all right.
join us next week, same time.
Next
We'll be
week,
here.
yeah, same time on next Friday for Solo: A Star Wars Story. And thank you all so much for watching and commenting along. Goodbye.
Yep. Bye.